Hello everyone and welcome to today's Marketing Society Inspiring Minds Digital Transformation event. For those I haven't met before, my name's Sophie Devonshire. I'm the CEO of the Marketing Society and I am fiercely proud to be part of this community of marketers who enjoy sharing stories, challenges and evidence to make a bigger impact. We're here to inspire, accelerate and connect the world's smartest marketers, helping them do well in their careers and do good in their businesses, the economy and society as a whole. And today is a great example of the type of inspiration and conversation that I love us to be sharing with you all. And it's a great subject. So let's talk about digital transformation. Digital transformation marks a radical rethinking of how an organisation uses technology, people and processes to fundamentally change business performance. But as we all know, change is challenging and can often be deeply difficult. So how do we find the right technologies and approaches needed to make better, more informed business decisions, improve operational efficiency, improve customer engagement and retention, as well as drive our organisation's digital culture? How do you, as an individual, affect positive change within your organisation? Today, we are hopefully going to get under the skin of some of those questions, and you'll take away some learning and tips around topics like how technologies are challenging existing businesses, and what the new business models and companies are adopting. What new skills are needed for corporates to help us remain competitive and relevant? How are industries adapting to the change? And how are they coping with a changing competitive landscape? What else do we need to be aware of when it comes to strategizing your digital talent, attracting and retaining the vital people you need? And how can big data transform organizations into more efficient and productive entities? Basically, you are going to be stuffed with insight this afternoon, and I know you're going to enjoy hearing from our two inspiring mind speakers today. But at the Marketing Society, any event we put on is never just about the speaker, but about you in the audience today. And we absolutely love hearing from you. So please let me invite each and every one of you to use Zoom, use the chat function, come and say hello to us. We'd love to hear who's out there in the audience today. Tell us where you're dialing in from. Please add your comments. If you disagree violently or agree with what the speaker's saying, come and add your comments and thoughts in chat, please. It is brilliant to hear from you and we really love it when you do. And we particularly love it if you have questions to ask. So we have the Q&A function. Please come and add your questions as we go through. Be keyboard warriors, interact with us, come and say hello. I am delighted now to introduce you to our first Inspiring Minds speaker of the day, Fiona Gray, who is the Marketing Director at Equator. Equator is a digital transformation agency and they've appeared in eConsultancy's top 100 list. They connect the worlds of brand, marketing and technology to deliver integrated experience. And Fiona herself has over 17 years of experience in marketing roles. And she'll be sharing her perspectives on digital transformation and how best to approach and implement it. We're going to hear her thoughts on what organisations need to consider when starting their journey: culture, people, tech, processes. She's going to touch on the pitfalls of a core approach, why timing and patience are so important in your digital transformation journey. And she's going to talk us through some examples of what some of the new business models companies are adopting, what they're doing around transformation. And she'll also share with us what new skills are needed for corporates to remain competitive and relevant. So without further ado, please everybody welcome Fiona to our virtual stage. Hello, Fiona.
Hi, Sophie. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's great to have you here.
Delighted to be here. I'm going to share my screen with you now, so hopefully you can all see that. If I can get a thumbs up from someone, that would be fabulous. Excellent. Okay, so without further ado, I will kick off and cover some of the key aspects that Sophie just mentioned.
Oh, Fiona, sorry to interrupt. I don't think that shared your screen properly. If you could just do that again, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Can you see me now?
Yeah, that's it now. Thank you.
Excellent, fabulous. Thank you. So hopefully you can see that now, and I'll move on to my first slide. So why is digital transformation important? And hopefully the fact that you're first of all here today shows that you already know that it is important. But I think we cannot ignore the scale of which digital transformation is now taking precedence for many businesses. The stat that I've got on the screen here was estimated before the pandemic hit, and that by 2023, we expected 75% of companies to have a digital transformation strategy. But since then, things have obviously sped up enormously. The impact of COVID-19 on the pace of digital transformation is something that's very well documented, and efforts have been accelerated by as much as 7 years in some sectors. And as well as that, as many as 96% of UK decision makers have noted that the pandemic has sped up their company's digital transformation plans, and a huge proportion of those have said that it's done so by a great deal. So we're seeing now more than ever that consumers are demanding this type of shift. Many of us are using digital in our everyday lives, and we've experienced the positive impact that it can have on making our lives better. I, for example, couldn't live without my Alexa shopping list, for example. But as well as consumers demanding it, our teams are also demanding it. They want to get better, they want to learn new things, more than I've ever known. But they also want to have a much better work-life balance, and something like digital transformation can allow that to happen. And so it's really essential for us to utilise what the last 12 to 18 months have taught all of us to be better and to constantly improve. But I also, in saying all of that, I can completely appreciate that something like digital transformation can sound incredibly overwhelming for people. And so hopefully today I can provide you with some insight that will help move forward your strategy, no matter what your goals are or what sector you are in. So I'm going to start with a diagram that will hopefully help summarise each of the key stages that we use for a lot of our clients that works incredibly well for them to go through this transition. There are many elements, of course, but these core stages really help to break it down into a much easier to digest path to success. So I'll start with the first one on here on the far left, and that's the assess phase. And for me, this is one of the most critical parts of the entire process and journey. It's critical to future success. And I've spoken to many clients who really, they want to get stuck in and they want to get straight in the deep end and they get to the strategy piece, but that can be really dangerous. You have to take a step back and you have to speak to people, both internally and externally. And by doing that, along with research and analysis, really helps us to understand where a business is right now versus where it needs to be, as well as the state of the overall marketplace and industry. And what it also allows us to do is consider potential barriers, which again is fundamental to understanding where the pitfalls may be along the journey, because there will undoubtedly be some. We then move into the create phase. So once a broad high-level view has been gathered in that assessment piece, key opportunities should have been identified that digital capabilities will help to address. And this really forms the basis of a strategy and a delivery roadmap. And that plan needs to be something that's a living, breathing, flexible approach that helps to provide clear goals and priorities. And they should also help to identify and form the key work streams that follow, that require focused effort. Stages 3 through to 6, so from discovery through to delivery, are really all about ongoing review and continued enhancement of that strategy from discovery, definition, development, and then delivery. And this may be over a significantly long period of time. For example, our clients tend to have a 12 to 36 month roadmap, sometimes beyond. And that solution is really likely to evolve during that phase. In fact, it's something that should evolve. And then moving into the last stage, so you will notice here that this is not necessarily the final piece of the puzzle in terms of an end line. It's something that needs to continually evolve. And that analyze piece is really important also, not only for analysing progress and the successes that have been witnessed, but also the key points of failure along the way. And measuring against the benchmarks that you set out at the beginning allows you to then continually improve on them over time. And then lastly, enhancing that strategy. So as I say, not drawing a line and moving on. Hopefully by this point, transformation will be fundamental within the business, and it will have allowed people to have visionary thinking and continued innovation and strategic insight, which ultimately will help you stay ahead of the competition. And it may be that at certain points of this journey, you will go back to the assessment phase, or perhaps go back to reassess things at the creation stage, albeit a lighter version, perhaps, to help enhance and develop your strategy over time. Now, that's great when it comes to the theory side of things, but obviously the application of this involves a number of key considerations, which Sophie alluded to earlier. So I'm going to take a look at these 4 key considerations that I believe every business needs to take into account. So I'm going to look at culture, people, technology, and processes. I'll start with culture, and this is a pretty bold statement: ignore culture at your peril. But again, I say that purely down to the experience that I've had. Some clients that we've worked with have had on the face of it a really great strategy, but they haven't ingrained the approach within the business. And so it makes it much, much harder to see through. And that's one of the key reasons why I've actually featured culture first here. 46% of CIOs say that culture is their biggest barrier to digital transformation. And a lot of the reason behind that is due to the behaviours and attitudes within a business. But a lot of the time, that's down to the fact that people are very averse to change and they don't know what they don't know. And that is why, for me, transparency is absolutely key. A lot of those behaviours and attitudes can change if people are communicated to and they're aware of a plan. Creating a strong culture that backs digital transformation is not easy, and it does take time. And there are many ways that you can harness things to improve the culture within a business. It's essential to create a culture that is willing to experiment, willing to take risks, and one that celebrates failure along the way, because that in itself is progress. And I think the other key thing for me is by creating champions within a business. If you can get people to get behind a plan and help to see it through, that will be where the biggest change is witnessed. If you get it right, the impact is truly significant, and companies that focus on culture as part of a digital transformation strategy are 5 times more likely to achieve breakthrough performance. So although people on the face of it is very interlinked with culture, it is definitely about more than that, and more about the individuals as opposed to a business's culture as a whole. So 70% of digital transformations fail. And again, a lot of that is down to the resistance that people can get within their employee base. But it's not just about employees, it's about users too. And as I said at the outset on the process diagram, if you have included these people right from the beginning in that assessment phase, you will have involved them from the beginning, and they will feel very much part of that. I cannot stress how critical it is, and I've even put it in bold just to really get that point across, but it is really important that people are part of this journey. Communication is key no matter which people we're talking about, and if you intend to make a change, you really have to communicate it. Give the background to things, explain the process and getting to that point, and accept feedback also. I don't believe that feedback is hierarchical, and it shouldn't just be from the top down. And actually, don't just accept feedback, invite it from people. I also think that showcasing the benefits really allows people to believe in the change, and when they can see how it will positively impact them, they will get behind it and help drive forward further change. And my husband is actually working on a project at the moment, and as a result of the prep for this session today, we've been talking a lot about automation. And he's leading a project that will now start to automate some elements of their project, which not only helps speed things up, but keeps their customers happy. And it also gives his team some of their valuable time back to spend on other things like upskilling themselves and getting back some of their work-life balance. But if he had just started to automate something without communicating that and showcasing the benefits that would have, it's unlikely people would be so receptive of that change. And I think one of the key things about that is empowering people to be part of the process. And remember that digital transformation should create a much better customer and employee experience. And remember that it should be something that's better for everyone in the long run. I think that having the right people is really tricky to do, and it's a tricky balance to get. And it's something that will likely evolve too as the business needs to change. And a core part of getting people on board is also to support them with the right tools, which takes me on to the next consideration, which is technology. So I could sit here all day and talk about all different types of technology, everything from mobile phones and apps, cloud computing, IoT, AI. It's inherent in what we do day to day, but I don't think that that's going to be overly useful. And there's obviously plenty of articles out there that exist in all of those things. But what's more important is actually deciding on what is the right technology for your business. I think that this is a really interesting stat that 93% of companies consider innovative technologies as necessary to reaching their digital transformation goals. However, only 8% of global companies have actually been able to achieve their targeted business outcomes from their investments in digital technology. So some things are amiss here. We know that technology is important, we know it's necessary, but businesses aren't necessarily investing in the right areas of technology to help them achieve their goals. I think that in part, this is likely to be as a result of integrating with a new platform or technology without those all-important phases of assessment and planning that I mentioned earlier. Sometimes technology seems like it's too good to be true, and that's because it often is, or is often sold in that way. Or perhaps it's been introduced because it works somewhere else, but that doesn't mean it's been a good fit for this business sector or where you are within your journey. I think ultimately there is no one-size-fits-all approach to selecting the right technology, and it even varies within sector to sector. And deciding on what is right for your business really depends on what your goals are. So for example, are you looking to improve user experience? Or perhaps your focus is more about improving internal processes. This is why the goal definition at the outset is so important to deciding which technology is perhaps correct for your business. And then moving on to process. So anyone who's worked with me will know that I love a process. I really do. And I think that they are fabulous to allow us to help streamline things and make things more efficient. But we often get caught up in creating process for process sake and end up with something that either isn't fit for purpose or doesn't evolve as it should be. So over 35% of employees in this particular finding feel that management and leadership orientation is mostly focused on process and not business outcomes. Again, lots of businesses fall under that chat, and that's why that planning phase is so important. It may be that you need processes, and so by all means introduce them, but make sure that they're fit for purpose, they're designed with a goal in mind, and remember that digital transformation process changes should save time and ultimately lead to positive shifts in various different aspects of the business. Modernising processes should help everyone. They should help with customer engagement, employee productivity, business resiliency. And just because that's how things have always been does not mean that that's how things should be moving forward. So in that last section, I've spoken a fair bit about some of the key challenges and pitfalls that many businesses face when it comes to digital transformation, but I'd like to talk about these four in a little bit more detail. So the skills gap is something that, again, Sophie mentioned earlier on, and it's one of the core reasons behind many failings in digital transformation is not having the right people in place, or having the right people but not building on their capabilities over time. Getting the right fit of person can be an extremely difficult thing to do, especially as we tend to be talking about new and emerging models. So experience either doesn't exist there, it's very hard to come by. And even with the right people, they're in high demand, and we find that those people can be incredibly busy when we do get them in an organisation. So it's really important that if you do have a skills gap, you've got a plan in place to try and address it over time. The right technology. So either legacy issues perhaps and not investing at all in new technology, or investing in something incorrectly and making really costly mistakes. As I mentioned earlier, we find that some businesses have adopted new technology, but it's not the right fit. And so they can then be very averse to further change because they've not reaped the perceived benefits that they anticipate. True commitment is a bit of a controversial one, and many people say that they want to do digital transformation, but they're not actually willing to see it through. They often don't listen to people, and they don't learn or commit fully to actually transforming. You can't just say that you're committed to digital transformation. You have to live and breathe it and be absolutely determined to see it through and for it to succeed. And lastly, pace and sustainability. I mentioned earlier the impact that COVID has had on the pace of digital transformation, and I believe that we've now set the bar pretty high for ourselves, both internally and externally. So those expectations are higher than they ever have been before. And acceleration and scale were always required for true digital transformation, but COVID has forced us to jump forward and speed things up. And one of the core challenges now is how we stay ahead and keep things going at this pace that we've all become accustomed to. Long-term sustainability is something that can be a real challenge, and when digital transformation works, it works really well, but maintaining that over time and evolving, it does take continued effort. Time and patience is a fundamental pillar of success. And we're talking about transformation here, not just change. I used an analogy recently that resonated well with many others. If you wanted to transform your body, you would embark on a journey that would encompass many aspects of your life, diet, exercise, behavior, environment. Above all, you would not expect to have an immediate change overnight. There would be points along the way that you'd find things really, really hard. You'd perhaps need to try a few different food plans to find out what works for you. But ultimately, if you keep that end goal in mind, then that commitment would pay off. And I believe that it's the same with digital transformation. I'm going to move on now to a case study. And I had the pleasure recently of working on a project with a pan-European pharmaceutical company. And we've been working with them to completely evolve their entire business, right the way from the CEO to salespeople on the ground. And everybody in the business knew that they needed to embrace digital, but they just didn't know how to approach it. So we understood, first of all, their core pain points. So we knew that they needed to digitize. We knew that they needed a 3-year marketing strategy. We knew that they needed economies of scale. We knew that they needed to grow faster. And we knew that they needed to create a great patient and healthcare provider and pharmaceutical experience. Some of their markets were really heavily reliant on traditional methods, and you absolutely will not find me belittling the importance of offline media or partnerships, but this was about taking that to the next level and being able to truly measure the impact and effectiveness and modernize efforts in this new world that they found themselves in. So every single aspect of their business was assessed and reinvigorated, and now they're on the path to great success. They were and still are truly committed to seeing it through, and it's been wonderful to see such engagement from their staff and the customers that they have, because they're truly benefiting from the changes that they're making to improve and fully embracing the entire strategy. There's multiple different areas of the business model that we've worked with them to address. We're in month 6 now of the rollout of this roadmap, and we've already started to see some real improvements across the whole business. So we've been able to realign their marketing strategy, and now have a lead territory that manages most of their core channels. We've digitized their KPIs across all media, including offline integration. And we've made structural changes to their Google Analytics setup to get them much more visibility and analysis of people who are visiting their site. We've also integrated fully with Google Data Studio so that the CEO has got real-time access to performance and results. And we've also worked with them to improve sales funnels and the conversion rate of their website, as well as making changes to the site overall to improve the presence within search engines. And we've also worked with them on an e-commerce strategy. Lots of these aspects perhaps look like they are to benefit external customers, but we've also worked really hard to work with the teams and understand the challenges that they face, and built out training and development plans across every territory to up and cross-skill all employees, which is part of the reason why they're also committed to seeing this change through. So I've mentioned a few things about skills, and how would I distill that down? Practical skills will be important. So some of the things I have on here, from digital literacy through to integrated marketing techniques, are really, really important. But remember that you can always train people up or take them on a journey to get them to where you need to be. Some of the softer skills are much harder to come by, and they need to be ingrained in everyone. And so you have to have people who are flexible, and you have to have people who are willing to be collaborative and to make every other aspect on here work. I think one of the other key things that I would suggest doing, if required, is look externally for support. And this is not necessarily a plug for Equator, but there are many other businesses out there. There's a company that I've had the pleasure of working with in the past called Andragogy, and they work really closely with businesses to upskill some of their marketing teams into all areas of digital marketing. So there's a number of external suppliers that can really help to harness skills and improve them over time. It's just about finding the right one. So hopefully I've convinced you today that although digital transformation is a big commitment and it does require effort from every aspect of the business, the impact is significant. If not, I'll finish off on another stat to prove to you that it's not just me that thinks that. Digital first companies are 64% more likely to achieve their goals. Every digital transformation journey is unique, but there are some key similarities. There's no linear path. There is no silver bullet. And for true digital transformation, you have to embrace change. You have to encourage collaboration as well as input. And most of all, you have to be patient. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. That's fantastic. Really so much in there to think about, but it's fascinating, isn't it, how we all start off looking at digital transformation and thinking about the technology, and the reality is it's not about the technology, it's about the people. So I love the inferences there for us as marketeers, thinking about the skills we have and how that's translated when we look into digital transformation. And I also like the challenge around being patient, because I think that's very hard when you can see the need for an organisation to rapidly keep up with what's going on and to make the pace move quickly. So very, very helpful. Thank you, Fiona, for sharing all that. Really, really good. I think I'm conscious as well of time for us. And what I'd love to do is move from the stories you've shared there and the perspectives you've shared and some of those great stats onto a case study. A live story, and to introduce Natalie, who's going to probably, I think, pick up on a number of those important people, patience, process points that Fiona's shared with us. But thank you, Fiona, for joining us today. And I'm sure if anybody wants to get in contact with Fiona afterwards to ask more questions, I'm sure she would welcome that. So may I, everybody, to introduce the brilliant Natalie Thomas. Hello, Natalie.
Hi Sophie. Hi, everyone.
It's brilliant to have you here to share your story as well, Natalie. So Natalie is the Marketing and Digital Director at Royal Mail. Now, Royal Mail is a company which I guess you could say has changed a bit in its history, right? Bearing in mind that its launch was 500 years ago, when King Henry VIII first made Sir Brian Tuke the Master of the Posts in 1516, right? He was in charge of organising a system where each town in the country had to have 3 horses available to transport packets of royal letters and bring back news to the king. That's where it all started. But the Royal Mail has changed a huge amount, not just across those 500 years, but particularly in the last few years. And Natalie has had a lot to do with that. She has spent over 10 years driving engagement and growth via digital channels and marketing. Her previous roles at Royal Mail include Innovation and Marketing Director, Head of Digital Innovation, and Head of Customer Experience. And as an expert in delivering those world-class digital experiences and developing customer-led propositions, Natalie is a great example of an experienced leader of transformational change, particularly in FTSE 100 organisations. So we've asked Natalie here today to share her story. And after my conversation with Natalie, asking her some questions, you'll also have the opportunity to pose her some difficult questions if you like. So I think we're going to post on chat the link for any questions around that as well. So Natalie, thank you for joining us here today. Perhaps to kick us off, tell us just a little bit about you and your current role at Royal Mail.
Yeah, sure. So I am responsible for all of group marketing. And I also run our digital channels, so the website, the app, and got a great team of people that have a different range of skills across campaigns, as well as the more technical skills, and so the product owners for all the digital channels. So yeah, really exciting times for us at the moment. As you say, we've changed and evolved quite significantly over 500 years, but not least in the last 12 or so months.
Yes, and yeah, interesting times for anybody in business the last couple of years, obviously, and particularly for you. I think what's fascinating when I think about Royal Mail and you is I know for so many of us, we see it still as perhaps a very traditional British brand, but you've invested over £1.8 billion into that transformation programme. Tell us a bit more about that process and then the journey you've been on around that.
I mean, Fiona describes the process so well, but yeah, I think a lot of people might look at Royal Mail and see the over 100,000 postmen and women and collection drivers. They're out on the streets every day and think it's quite a manual business, you know, feet on the streets. And it absolutely, you know, our people are very much at the core of everything that we do. But it's a very different market out there. And as the world shifted from letters, sending cards and sending letters, to buying things online, we've had to evolve and change enormously, starting in the back end and then of course moving across to deliver customer value through our digital propositions. And that change, you're trying to shift behavior and habits of 100,000 plus people every time you do that. So you know, Finna's absolutely right. It's not, the tech is a small part of everything, but we've invested hugely in becoming a very modern e-commerce delivery company.
A huge amount of investment in the tech, but as we've heard and as we really all know, transformation isn't just about the tech, it's about the people. So talk us through how you've worked with your teams to get that buy-in and support behind the changes that Royal Mail has wanted to make.
Fiona was, I love that. I wrote that down. Ignore culture at your peril. I absolutely love that. You know, they absolutely have to be part of the journey. And it can seem overwhelming when you start at a certain point, especially as an incumbent organisation, lots of smaller, more agile organisations coming in to compete with your services. You feel like you have so much catching up to do. And I think splitting that up into bite-sized chunks for people and having a common goal, you know, that common goal of delivering value to customers has been the anchor point in getting everyone to feel the part they play in the journey. And it's so much about people. I think we chatted and I said, I would argue it's probably 90% about people. You know, we're not short of different tech that we can choose or processes we can automate or re-engineer, but having engaged people who feel they're absolutely part of the story, that's the key to everything.
But what's interesting about that is, of course, again, this is where those in marketing can unite those people behind that common goal, behind that common focus, because we are making sure that the customer is the focus, not the technology, not the project, not what's happening, but there's a unification and acceleration that goes on around that customer focus. Not easy though, not you know, definitely. We've just seen the stats about the percentage of digital transformations that fail. So you know, the fact that you're sitting there and you've made such great progress, you know, is testament to the fact that you have made a real difference with those people. So thinking about your team, and you've talked about how you galvanize them and keep them focused. What about making sure they keep abreast of the latest trends, the innovations? You know, how do you make sure you're one step ahead when everything is moving so fast? And, you know, I know you're developing a lot of integrations as well with online sellers like Amazon, eBay and Etsy. So how do you keep your team abreast of what they need to know?
I mean, we're not short of data, so I will say that. And if you say data is king, insight is queen. So what does the data mean? You know, data underpins everything for marketers in this new world. But it's the insight that the data gives that's the most critical. So making sure that we have regular updates of our segmentation, our personas, making sure, you know, they're our good starting point to anchor us around what our strategy should be. And leaning on partners and external support and experts for that knowledge and that upskilling, I think is really important. In the digital space, Royal Mail acquired a couple of essentially software development houses a few years ago. and they're the absolute pros at everything that they do in software development. And we work across the business with the technical teams, with the product or customer teams, and including marketing and the delivery teams, to share knowledge, to have that good view of what's going to deliver customer value. And I think bringing in some experts has also really helped. Things such as SEO is a dark art that I don't profess.
Black magic.
It is complete black magic. So, bringing in the skills where you need to and leaning on the experts is really important. But I think working across teams in a squad type approach has really helped everyone have more of an insight into the different elements of delivering great customer journeys and great customer value.
Let me just reflect on that, because there's so much in what you've just talked about there. Going back to Fiona's point about the need for patience, totally get that, and we need to make sure it is part of our role as leaders and as marketeers. But I am always a little bit impatient to keep the pace up, and I think there's 4 things you talked about there. One is that idea of helping everyone have that human understanding around the personas. I imagine in Royal Mail that's a nice easy one, because everybody can relate to it. We've all been customers as well. So you talked about the human understanding piece of it all. You also talked about not doing it alone, so using the accelerators of partners and people you work with, which Fiona also picked up. And you also talked about acquiring other people, which is obviously a great way of doing that. And then there was one last point at the end, which was the squad, so actually the structure of what you were doing. So 4 great ways to actually accelerate pace and bring those together. Have I summarized that correctly? Does that sound like
I think
levers
yes, absolutely. Very well digested.
But I am interested in the idea of for our audience, how we accelerate things, obviously. And Ben's asked a great question. And Ben, I was tempted to pause on this one too. We talked about how to get people engaged at scale and the challenge of that. Ben's asked, do you have any quick wins for the beginning of the journey? How do you get those people really bought in right at the start of it all?
So Fiona touched on the digital champions point in her. And what we've started is we do power hours. So we have power hours every month where we get groups of individuals from across the business, and we essentially do product or proposition teardowns. So think like a customer. What do you think of this digital journey? What do you think? What would you do better? So everyone's putting themselves in the feet of the customer, not in the foot of the postman or woman, the back-end operator, the marketeer. They are very much thinking like a customer, and we rip apart our own journeys, our own customer experiences, and then work out a plan to fix them together and then reconvene. And I think that's been a really nice way of engaging across the business from people that we're all customers. Well, certainly of Royal Mail, we are all customers, but I think being able to see things in the eyes of your customers, no matter what your role is really powerful. And getting that, everyone will have a different mission and a different view. So getting that variety of feedback has been, I think that's a really quick win that you can actually start to introduce, that's quite practical, tactical, but takes you on a journey towards delivering that community.
That's a great example of the tear down power hours. But yeah, I'm sure obviously in your business, as you say, we are all customers, but in any organization, getting that customer centricity and getting everybody inside the organization thinking like a customer and using that time to help the thinking, so sounds like a great way of kicking things off. So Ben, there's one tangible takeaway idea for you. And Stephen wants to ask about the difficulties there and is talking about, thank you for inspiring us, Natalie. What have you found to be the biggest or maybe most unexpected challenge you've encountered as you've faced this wonderful transformation challenge? What's been the hardest thing?
I would say so introducing live chat. You would think the amount of time we spent on mobiles and texting, what have you, live chat would become more natural to people than speaking on the telephone or what have you. When I'm talking about our customer agents in this scenario, and to think that how easily we multitask in our normal world, I thought it would be a lot simpler to introduce multi-chat, live chat into the organization. But actually, it seems that our brains work in a different way when we're acting on behalf of someone else, not ourselves. And I would say I found that the biggest challenge to get us to a place where that technology that we've invested in, you get the value out of it, because it needs the people to operate it at the level and in the way that you need it to be operated at. So it's the adoption of technology is the hardest part. And again, Fiona called that out. The most successful is when you have engaged and skilled, communities of individuals that can operate in this new way and this new world.
So the bit we think about, which is introducing the technology, but then with live chat as an example, it's the bit that goes into it and people responding to it. We've only just introduced live chat on the Marketing Society website, actually, and it is a great way to be able to get back to people super fast and build that relationship. But yes, of course, it's the human interaction side of it all. Interesting, isn't it? Things that are unexpected about the challenges. I also want to pick your brains while you're with us, Natalie, because I think for many of us, what's going on in terms of trends with physical mail and reaching customers in the post, but also just out of general interest, seeing what's happened in terms of customer trends for the Royal Mail. We know that so many more people are buying online. What's that meant for you as the Royal Mail? And are you seeing any long-term trends you think are relevant as a result of that change in consumer behaviour?
So I would say if we think back to January to March last year, and the profile of e-commerce looked very much, fashion, all the things you would expect to buy online, some electronic items from Amazon, they were the key things. And an interesting thing happened come March, April last year. People started ordering Lemsip, loo rolls online, things that you would normally go to a shop and buy. People were desperately worried of running out. And so they were buying these things online. And then as lockdown progressed, moving into homeschooling books, I was in that world too, failed miserably, but I attempted. Homeschool books and gardening equipment to keep them entertained, and then things to improve the home. So and art and things that you would have never expected people to buy online. It changed quite significantly. Now, what does the crystal ball say? That's the $1 trillion question. What the future profile looks like? Yeah, absolutely no idea. But what we do know is that digital is a part of that whole customer journey now. It's not just, you don't just engage with a retailer because you want to buy something online. You might do your research online before you go into a physical store. When you go into a physical store, you expect that omni-channel journey to be able to connect you the digital and the physical world. So I might want to check stock online before I go to a shop. I might want to sort of have a digital showroom, the ability to try clothes on myself. And the changing room is definitely moved to home. So for a retailer to have a slick process across the customer journey is really, really important. So I think that's changed forever.
Huge change. And I think it's been enough time for people to embed some habits as well. It's interesting to watch it, hasn't it? I mean, I have to say, and that shift from you being a letters business to a parcel business is so huge. I mean, I was telling you, I have a local post office, which is normally only collection, but I've seen people queuing up with the app to, be able to share their postage for what they're posting as QR codes directly with the postie, very, very happily, raving about what a difference it's made to their convenience. The parcel pickup, there's so many different things that are now being offered to build into that, making it as convenient as possible for us to buy whatever we want to. So yes, it's not just me being lazy with a lemon sip or whatever. It's interesting to see that we've learned that everything can be delivered. So
absolutely, and our worlds are 24/7 now, aren't they? They're all 24/7, and the ability to go online, buy your own postage, and drop off in a parcel post box. We've got parcel post boxes now that you can just drop off your item, or even we'll come to you now and we'll collect from your doorstep. So you don't even have to go anywhere. I mean, that is a true 24-hour society now. And a lot of those we've delivered in the last year as people's habits change.
It's amazing. But all of us as marketers know that when you see that impact of that and you go, oh, that's great, they've done that, behind getting that to happen, behind the delivery, no pun intended, there is a lot that's gone into it all. So let's go back to the people side of it all. We've talked about how critical it is to engage people, to focus them around the customer. What about actually just getting the right people in the right roles? For a lot of us, we end up actually what we're doing from a marketing point of view, affecting the organisation brand. So bringing the right people in. Just out of curiosity, what have you done to attract the right people, and what are those new roles? What do they look like?
I agree with Fiona. It's the soft skills that are important. You can teach people, you can upskill them. There are more courses than we know where to look nowadays on the technical skills needed for marketing, apart from SEO, which still remains a dark art to me, no matter how many others put it. You can bring in skills from externally as well to upskill, but I think the soft skills are remain absolutely critical. And having that engagement and that motivation from your team that they want to be part of the journey, but they're definitely more technical, the roles that we have in marketing now. Marketing is, without doubt, it's a science. It's a data and insight science, and it's a psychological science. And so you have to find the balance between the two. They're the skills that you need to provide people. And underlying that is absolutely those soft skills that you can, as long as you've got those, then I firmly believe that any team you can build to have the technical skills that they need to perform in their roles.
So interesting. And yes, I mean, for us as a society, that focus on actually building up people's knowledge, but also help accelerating influence and leadership skills, to build on those soft skills, to have the impact we want to have. It's a challenge for marketers. I want to ask about you personally then, Natalie. So I guess my first question is, are you enjoying this? Are you feeling good about being in marketing right now and being in this role? And then my second question is, where do you go to be inspired? Who or what is inspiring you? What do you do to keep learning and keep accelerating your marketing leadership? Lots of questions.
I know that marketing is such an exciting place to be. I think we're in quite a unique position to be able to see across both the digital elements, the customer side, and connect the dots between the two. We can be, I see more and more marketers as the people that are breaking down the silos, that are helping cross-business unit collaboration, that are really helping everyone get into the mind of the customer. It's such a great place to be in marketing at the moment. I think you can have lots of exciting experiences and learn and develop so many new skills. So I'm big tick for me. I think it's a great place to be at the moment. I'm so fortunate along the line. I have met some amazing, I will say women. I have met some amazing men as well who've been hugely supportive, but I've met some just outstanding women, a lot of whom seem to have got themselves a Queen's Honour while writing books. Sophie, I know you've written yourself a book. Some raising families or having completely fulfilled personal lives, building business empires, it's just, I am not short of inspiration. I do think some of that inspiration has to come from within, because I think we're all surrounded by people who could be inspirational. But if we're not interested or not inspired to learn and grow and develop ourselves, then you probably won't even notice them. So I am fortunate. I have met some amazing women and men, but I think the desire to learn and grow and be more every day is what inspires me, without a shadow of a doubt. And I'm halfway through your book. I got sent all these amazing books at the same time, but yeah, it's fascinating.
Well, so reading is obviously a way to tap into that inspiration. But yeah, I think it's, as we spend time with marketing leaders within the Marketing Society, that curiosity, that consciousness that we are all iterative processes and we need to keep learning, and the desire for that, it remains so important. But it is hard, when things are busy and when there's a lot going on in our lives and there's a lot of pressure as marketeers to learn and know everything. So I like the idea of it being a shortcut to actually be inspired by other people's stories, to hear what they're doing, and even just talking to you today, that's absolutely at the heart of that idea. If we share our stories, if we share what's been hard, we share what's worked for us, then it sort of sparks ideas for other people and hopefully inspires them to go on to do more. And yes, a wonderful time to be in marketing, partly because so many of us are impacting different parts of the organisation with our roles, and a gigantic digital transformation and seeing that and looking at it through a marketer's lens is an amazing achievement. So what next? What you've done so much in the last year, development. What's the next steps for this transformation journey, and what will we be seeing from Royal Mail over the next year moving forward? What's happening next?
A lot more and quicker, even quicker. We have created this iterative process across the organization now, so which means we can deliver customer value a lot quicker, and that means we can keep evolving and keep changing. We spent the last 500 years evolving and changing, so the ambition is to keep evolving and changing for the next 500 years and beyond. So that's the ambition for the next year: more, quicker, and keep going for another 500 years.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's not much. It's
not much,
but it is important, because I think there are a lot of people who cite startups, scale-ups, newer companies and what they're doing from a digital transformation point of view, and then the bigger organizations sometimes look at them and go, hold on a second, they're speedboats but we're big super tankers. How do we do that? Someone once told me a great story about what's he called, Buckminster Fuller, the great thinker and writer, talking about the trim tab on a sail. So if you have a massive boat, there's this tiny little thing called the trim tab, and the sailors listening will probably correct me on how this actually works. Basically, all you need to do is just move that trim tab for the whole boat to be able to move around. And there's definitely something about the role of certain leaders in big organizations and the impact they can have. But in some ways it's a much harder a more challenging achievement when you're doing it with an older organisation. So all credit to you, Natalie, and it's great to hear about this. Now, I know we could talk for hours more. I've got more questions. There will be more questions coming through, I know, but I'm very, very conscious of everybody's time. And one of the things we want to do as a society is respect everybody's time. And today we've managed to share in a short, sharp session great insights from Fiona, great insights from you, Natalie. Thank you so much for your candour and sharing all these stories. Huge thanks to you and to Fiona, and huge thanks to Edrington, who are our sponsors for the Inspiring Minds series. Loving working with them, loving what we're doing with this series. Would love to know, for those of you listening, what you thought. We'll be sending you a link to get some feedback. Love feedback, or come and connect with me, sophie@marketingsociety.com, to let me know your thoughts, ideas. Oh, we've got a poll that's make it nice and easy for you, a quick feedback poll. And while you're filling that in, don't go everybody, because I've got some news for you. I've got some dates for your diary about the next unmissable things. Next Wednesday, 30th of June, come and join us over lunch for a global conversation. So we've got a great selection of 4 different leaders, marketing leaders from around the world, talking about the 4 Ps and how we innovate around those 4 Ps. And we've got Marketing Society fellow Alex Batchelor, who's a great brain and a lovely person, hosting that. So come and join us for that next Wednesday lunchtime. And please make sure you have in your diaries, especially our Scotland members, but also members from around the world, the Marketing Society Scotland's Amplify Marketing Festival is back on the 15th of August. Put it in your diary. And the most exciting thing is for this year's Ogilvy lecture, we have none other than Alan Scott, who is an incredible businessman by heritage, but is now a creative, tenacious person who has moved from running a Scotch whisky success story to being the co-creator of one of last year's most game-changing global productions. He is the co-creator of The Queen's Gambit, and he'll be joining us to talk about creativity, he and Rory Sutherland, and to talk about what it takes to really make a success of something like that. So join us for that on the 15th of August. Put it in your diaries now, please. And everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us today, especially when I know how busy everybody is. Keep connected with us on LinkedIn, Twitter. Make sure you're getting our emails because there's so much more coming and we would love to share all that with you. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Stay curious, stay connected, and have a lovely afternoon. See you all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.